This is Kimberly Quinn, host of the Mindcraft podcast, and I can't tell you how much fun I have had doing this podcast. I started when the world closed over the pandemic in an attempt to spread some positivity out there and give people some strategies to enhance their own well being and reduce anxiety and all of that. Now, 2 years later, we're still going strong and now listened to by 52 countries across the world. And I've even helped some of my students get going with their own podcasts. It's super easy to do. And I'll tell you, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it is the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. I'll just explain for you. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It is a ball. Start today. Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another Minecraft discussion this morning. It's the morning in Vermont. Beautiful, rainy morning, so peaceful. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am here to have discussion on living by natural law. And I'll tell you something, and if my friend Tom is listening, he's super into the whole topic of synchronicity. It was wild because I just did a video yesterday, the day before, on letting go. And I was literally just, I fiddle around and just kind of pop open books, and it's just like inspirational book dipping, and then it's whatever's right there is usually something that I just need in that day. It's absolutely wild. And I just on a letting go one, just barely opened the book by Wayne Dyer, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And there's the verse on living by natural law is just such a sort of a natural continuation of the discussion we were having just yesterday, the day before. And so I like to really kind of continue on with the whole idea of the natural law. That's the part that's unaffected by the ego, by the way, and talking about this state of going with the flow. So I'll start by just sharing with you the 29th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Oh my God, this is amazing. It says, "Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. Everything under heaven is a sacred vessel and cannot be controlled. Trying to control leads to ruin. Trying to grasp, we lose. Allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. Just as you breathe in and breathe out, there's a time for being ahead and a time for being behind, a time for being in motion and a time for being at rest, a time for being vigorous and a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe and a time for being in danger. To the sage, all of life is a movement toward perfection. So, what need has he for the excessive, the extravagant, or the extreme?" Oh my gosh, I mean, I just opened this literally inches, milliseconds before I decided to do this podcast because my head has been here this week a little bit that we just, for some reason, we like to think we're in charge, and we're not in charge of anything. No, not really. And when we give up that control, and I don't mean in a defeated, sense like that, but just in an conscious, active, decisive way to just surrender. And wow, I mean, it's just so true. And I listen to all these great thinkers, Wayne Dyer, Oprah, my dear friend, and there's and so many others, just so many others. Joe Dispenza is another one. It's so true. When we let go of control is when it all happens. When we put on, doesn't mean sit back on the couch and have a sandwich like Jim Carrey would say, but to actually throw everything you've got, give all everything you've got to it, and then let go, because life really does unfold, and it can be so much easier when we just dig our nails in. And Wayne Dyer he says like this verse speaks of a natural law that is unaffected by ego. And just remember, listeners, the ego is the evil twin of the authentic self. So if you're listening to this at all, you are clearly on the path to authenticity. And then he says, the message: you are not in charge. You never have been, and you never will be. So you're advised to let go of any ideas you have about controlling anything or anyone, including yourself. It's a difficult lesson for most of us to learn. As Lao Tzu puts it in the beginning of this verse, I do not believe it can be done. Nevertheless, here's one of the world's most famous scientific minds, Albert Einstein, commenting on this law. I love Albert Einstein. Okay, here we go. It says the scientist, in brackets, religious feeling takes the form of a rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law, which reveals an intelligence of such superiority that, compared with it, all the systematic thinking and acting of human beings is utterly an insignificant reflection. This feeling is the guiding principle of his life work. Wow. The thing is, we have this feeling, or it's like we need to have this feeling that we can control everything, people, relationships, anything, situations, circumstances going on in our lives. In the reality, we are not in charge. We are not in charge. That is just the truth. And remember, we are talking about the ego is the evil twin of the authentic self, right? The ego feeds on fear. And when it's in that mode, it goes looking for external approval. It's out trying to please people, rescue people, looking for kudos, looking for appreciation and admiration, all that stuff. That's all ego. The authentic self, when she or he are there in their frame, right? We talked about that. The authentic self doesn't need any of this. The authentic self knows it's all going to be okay. The authentic self, remember that the approval feels good, and this feels good, and that feels good, but the authentic self doesn't go looking for it. This is the difference. It can feel good, but the authentic self is all set, all good with exactly how she is in this moment. It's when we get locked into ego mode and trying to control everything outside of us, people and places and things, that we end up in a place of suffering, for lack of a better word. When we learn to let go, okay, we then become in a place where we are aligned, we are in alignment with the divine force that's within all of us, connecting us together. And we've talked about this a lot, because there is no way to sort of land at your highest vibe authentic self without acknowledging and embracing the divine within. It's just how it is. Call it universe, call it source with a capital S. For me, it's God, call it higher power, because there's a bigger plan for each and every one of us. And in order for that plan to happen, we've got to kind of acknowledge and embrace that we are all part of something way bigger than us. And Wayne explains, he says, a power hungry and ego dominated control freak, it's not, we're talking about the Tao. Feeling superior is a human creation, isn't that the truth? He says the Tao doesn't act as a boss, forcing itself on you or anyone. It simply allows all of creation to reveal itself with perfect timing. And all that is revealed is sacred because it's a piece of the ego free Tao. And just like we've spoken about in different contexts through Minecraft episodes, whatever, the number one is awareness. We cannot do what we do not know. We have to become aware of the fact that trying to control, which is an illusion anyway, trying to control people and places and things, circumstances in our lives, is making us uncomfortable at the least, right? And there's a whole spectrum, because life doesn't happen on one end or the other. There's uncomfortable all the way to suffering, plain out and out suffering. And so when we practice anything, we get better at it. So we have awareness, then we have to commit. Commit doesn't mean perfection. That's a bad word. The P word's bad. Progress, not perfection. The progress word's a good one, because we just want to be after our own personal best, right? So do our best each and every day to be better at whatever it is today than we were yesterday. If we get a little sidetracked, kind of fall off the wagon, we just get back up. So the first part is awareness. The second part is committing to improvement. And then the third part is effort, right? Putting practice. We can, just like anything else, if we practice letting go of control, we will get better at it. Just like practicing the violin or skiing or whatever else, we will get better at it. So when we're talking about uh, looking to give up needing to control, he says, begin a conscious program of surrendering. Remember, not talking about a defeated way, we're talking about in a positive, proactive way. Begin a conscious program of surrendering and allowing your world and everyone in it to do as they are ordained to do. Surrendering is a mental process. It involves taking a split second to stop yourself in your mode of judgment or frustration and have a brief talk with yourself on the spot. I do this a lot, sometimes out loud. And people can see my head moving when I'm having a conversation with myself. And then Wayne says, just remind yourself to step back and be a witness rather than a protagonist, which you can do by providing a sanctuary for the feeling you're judging. Invite divine natural order in by simply allowing what you're experiencing to go forward without criticism or control. In this way, you move to the center. I love that. This also is part of what we're talking about when we've had our talks on mindfulness, because one of the biggest or largest components of mindfulness is the non-judgment piece, which is personally one of the reasons I like it so much. Here comes an anxious thought. Okay, all right, apparently I'm feeling anxious today. So what? Who cares? And welcome to the human race, right? So Wayne is really saying the same thing. Just allow it, whatever the feeling is, to move through without judging. Oh, here I go again. I can't even do this right. No. Allow it all to move right through you and to just center you with how you're feeling in that moment. And then he says, think of the need to control as a signal to allow the Tao to flow freely through your life. At first, your ego mind may loudly scoff at the idea of the Tao being responsible for the perfect unfolding of everything. It's up to you to recognize that your belief that ego can control life is an illusion. My friend Bjorn is constantly saying this. I was going to say it again. It's up to you to recognize that your belief that ego can control life is an illusion. All right. So I'd also like to reiterate here is that whatever we practice, we get better at, no matter what it is, right? The violin, the guitar, even robbing banks, we get better at whatever it is. My students usually chuckle when I say that. And not only do we get better at whatever it is, it also becomes easier. There's less upkeep. So my example is usually playing the guitar, which one of my students used one time, and I just kept it. If you're just starting, you build calluses and then eventually the calluses go away, and your fingers can just handle it, and you can just do it with more ease. Well, so is it true with anything else? Just like practicing letting go and not, buying into this whole idea of control, which is an illusion anyway. So practice going with the flow, letting life unfold as it's meant to, and that's it. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.